So we waited about 3 days, factoring the humidity for the cabinet to dry. And the first thing we're going to do is remove the door. We're going to have to replace the hinges anyway. I'm taking a 120 grit sanding block and I'm just going around and doing a scuff sand on the entire piece of furniture. This is not aggressive. You just want to pass over and just give a little grit to the wood that we're going to get ready to prime. As I was sanding, I was really noticing that some of the veneer was severely lifting, not in all spots. So I decided that I was going to try to scrape it off, as there was no way to glue this back down or repair it. It was just too far gone. And the door to the left and the panel to the left came right off. And the door to the right, I just was able to get a little off. Now, that little chip that you see down in the left corner of this particular door, I would have just wood puttied. I don't always go around and start tearing off the veneer unless I feel like I have no other option. Right now, I'm just blow drying off any of the debris, and just stick with me as I'm going to explain the veneer shortly. I was going to use a raised stencil in the veneer area, but I did change my mind, so stick with me. But we're going to start with Wise Owl white primer. It comes in clear and gray. And I'm going to be using a foam roller from Lowe's and a Gen foam brush. My Gen foam brush is about 3 or 4 inches wide. You can get them at most True Value stores. They're a few dollars. I don't really like to use my Klingon brushes or my good brushes with the primer. It's the one thing I really don't like to use them with. I just feel like they're never really the same afterwards. So I like to use brushes that don't mean that much to me. And these you can either toss when your project's done, or you can wash a brush. I just don't like to use my Klingons. So we just went around and covered every area of the cabinet with the white primer, except for the insides. We have a different plan for the inside of this cabinet. Now you will do 2 coats. Once this dries, you're going to do a second coat, especially if you're doing white. If you're not doing white, 2 coats is not necessary, or a light color. Even gray, I probably would do 2 coats. Remember at the end of your priming to make sure you open all doors and drawers as your primer is drying. And remember that once you're done priming, you want to wait at least 4 hours before you do a second coat. I also wait overnight before I start to paint, to make sure the longer the primer's there, the more it's going to be able to do its job. I just want to do a quick talk because some things are really hard to record and you get everything out of it. So when we prime, first of all, Wise Owl has 3 primers. They have a gray, and this is what it looks like. Hope you can see that. It looks like a little light gray. Actually, it's a really pretty color. I use it sometimes just for paint on my crafts. And this is clear. The clear kind of, it still has a white look to it, but you could tell there's like it does look a little bit more oily. And then we have white. Okay, so the reasons you would use these different colors, I'll give a couple examples, and they all work fine on anything you want to do. If you only have clear, that's fine. If you only have gray, that's fine. If you only have white. But if you have all 3 and you have the opportunity to make a choice, if I was doing a piece of furniture that I'm going to paint, but I want to distress, go back to the wood, or do some wet distress where I reveal some of the, some of the detail, I'm going to use the clear, because I don't want, because if you do that with the white or the gray, you're going to see white and gray. You're not going to be able to go back to the wood. And this primer sticks, okay? It doesn't sand, you can sand it, but it takes a lot. So that's why I would use the clear primer. The white primer I would use, if I know in advance, I'm going to do white or cream or any light color. And the gray, obviously, like this particular buffet here, I use the gray primer because it's 1 coat towards the color that I'm going to be using anyway. The gray is also good if you're covering with hard to cover colors. Like I want to say, if you're covering over with red or maybe green, the gray is a good primer to go with. Again, if you're starting with a piece of wood and you're going to do a dark color like black, I would use the clear because it's easier to cover just the wood versus either one of these colors if I'm going to do black. So these are not rules. These are just, if you had all three, why would I use one over the other? Another thing is when you get your can, you want to make sure you mix very, very well. All the good stuff is at the bottom, and this is regarding your paint as well. Mixing your can very well is very important. So some of the tools that we use is a foam roller, and they're 4-inch rollers. And these are great if you have flat surfaces. And the specific rollers we use are Whiz. These are from Lowe's. These are our favorite, and they're our favorite because they hold together longer. Some of the other ones while you're doing your project, like, because once I open this, I can use this, put it back in a Ziploc baggie, or cover it with foil, and I can use it throughout my project. So if the project takes 3 days, I can hold it on to it for 3 days. Some of the other ones, I find they start to split right around here. So when you're rolling, you can actually see the mark of the split. And you just get more out of your money with the Whiz. When you saw me chipping off the veneer, I just use, you know, a very sturdy spackle knife of some sort. So I don't want this whole project to confuse you, but I tend to change my mind. So when you saw me pulling up off the veneer, my thinking was, first of all, I still didn't even know what color I was going to do. That's why we used white. Secondly, my thinking was I was going to try to make it as simple as possible and do a raised stencil in those areas to mask the chipping of the veneer. And then I'm sleeping, and I had this thought that you guys can learn a lot by learning how to remove veneer. So the rest of the video, I'm showing you how to remove the veneer. The thing that's backwards is if I knew that I was going to do this ahead of time, I would not have primed. I would have waited till I was done with this process, and then I would have primed. So I just wanted to make that clear so nobody's confused. Yes, I should not prime until after I remove my veneer. This was an afterthought, and I thought to myself, this is a very good teachable moment on how to remove veneer that is severely damaged, or in this case, this veneer was literally just floating on the door. There was nothing left. There was maybe a little piece of glue holding that whole thing on. It had to come off. So a lot of people say, don't paint, don't do this, don't do that, but they're not seeing up close and personal some of the issues these pieces have. If I had just painted over it, it's gonna fall off. It's just not, it's not the right way to do things. You can replace veneer. I just don't do it because it's not worth it for me. So stay tuned. I'm going to show you how we remove veneer with a wet towel. Thanks so much. We laid our hutch down and we took a bath towel and made it wet, and it's not dripping wet, but it's wet. And you lay it on the part of the piece that you want to remove your furniture for 2 to 3 days. After 2 to 3 days, you remove your towel and you take the scraper, and as you can see, it lifts right off. Now, we only removed the veneer in areas that needed to be removed, and we left the rest. But this old furniture has wood underneath the veneer. So you still have something to paint, you have something to work with. And again, once this was fully removed, we did reapply our primer. Now, if this seems a little much for you, these are little things that you want to look at when you're picking up furniture. You know, you want to look at the veneer, you want to see if the door's open and shut, things like that. As you're going, if you find that some of the veneer is still being stubborn, you just lay your towel back down and wait another 2 to 3 days. All mine came off pretty much in this setting. Next video, we're going to move into painting this piece. If you want to go back and watch us wash it, go to chalkitupfancy.com or YouTube. For any paint products, brushes, or primer, chalkitupfancy.com. Thank you so much for watching.